Hello, this is Elena Smith again, and in this video, in the previous video, we've already talked about the nursing program, the requirements to get in, how to apply. So this video, we are going to focus on building out your pre-nursing plan. So we'll be planning for the spring semester, which I know a lot of you are eager to do, but we're also going to plan it and the next couple of semesters. It's really helpful to go ahead and plan out every pre-nursing requirement that you have. Because it makes sure that all of the courses that you need are in the correct order, that you're not missing anything, because the worst thing that could happen is we accidentally don't plan the right class because we weren't looking at them all together, and then you have to wait to apply because we missed something. So we're going to avoid that by planning from the beginning. Before we dive into that though, I want to make sure that you have a couple of documents pulled up. They were emailed to you. You are going to need this document. I recommend that you pause the video here in just a second. Put your name at the top, put your M number at the top. Go ahead and pause the video and do those two things now. The other document that you should have is this. It's called Steps in Color at the top, or it'll say probably checklist. I'll update that to say checklist when I send it to you. But we're going to use this as a checklist to make sure we've planned all of the classes you'll need as a pre-nursing student. So this actually lists out all of the pre-nursing classes, and we're going to be checking them off with each step. So please note that it goes step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and I will walk you through each of these steps. But having those two documents pulled up, you could print them out if you wanted to. That's really going to help you out. Okay. We're going to start by taking a look at a degree audit. Just note, I'm going to go over these things with you, but there are often multiple sections to everyone's degree audit. Some people have a few extra sections, but everyone's going to have multiple. And let's take a look at what that looks like. So I'm running a what if audit on myself. So this is not another student, this is me. But a what if analysis is going to allow me to run this as if I were also a pre-nursing student. Yours should look a little bit different up here. It's going to list your major, which is pre-nursing or nursing pre-licensure. It's going to have you in the McQuarrie College of Health and Human Services. It will also list your advisor, whether that's me or Jessica McShann. So your information up here is going to look a little bit different. And then rather than being on the what if tab, you'll be on your regular academic tab. But everyone should have this first section, and actually everyone at the university is going to have this first section. It will say degree and bachelor of whatever you're doing, but this section runs the same for everyone. This first section of the audit is focusing on university-wide requirements. So how many credit hours are you taking? What overall GPA do you have? How many upper level and lower level classes do you have? A couple of things I'm just going to point out really quickly. For your 120 minimum credit hour requirement, this is where you'll start to see the university list all of the classes you've taken. So I'm actually enrolled in one class right now, so this is where that's listed. But it's going to list all your classes until you hit 120 credit hours. Once you hit 120, it will stop counting there. You also have to have 40-hour upper division requirements. Upper division courses are anything 300 or higher. So this is a 700 level class, which is why it's showing up in this section too. But all of your classes that are 300 or higher are going to count in this category as well. They'll count in both the 120 and the 40. When you are in the nursing program, all of your classes are 300 level or higher, so you will be hitting that 40-hour upper division requirement once you're in the nursing program. So we're not really worried about this right now, or really even this, but this is where you can go to look at all your classes. Counting things like GPA and other requirements that the university has. As a pre-nursing student, we're going to focus a lot on this general education category. There are students who transfer in a lot of credit hours and are on a different general education plan called Core 42. If that is you, it's going to say Core 42 here. Please email your advisor and let them know that you need support for Core 42 on your degree plan. But most freshman students are going to have general education requirements. General education just tracks all of the classes that everyone at the university is required to take. So every student is going to have this section no matter their major. There are categories where you have options of classes you can take, but every student to complete a degree from Missouri State will need to have a class for each of these categories. So you'll see some like GEP for first year seminar. That's the only option to meet that unless you're in the honors college, and then there's an honors college option. For written communication, you only have two options, oral communication, COM 115. But then you have some other ones like this quantitative literacy and written communication where there are multiple classes you can take. For some of these categories, I will be giving you specific classes to take because nursing students have specific general education courses for those categories. For example, in math, nursing students have to take 134 or higher, so you would not want to take Math 130. But then there are other ones, such as written communication. This Writing 2 is what we usually call it, where the nursing program will take any of these classes, so you can pick whatever you want. And I will be letting you know which ones you have specific classes for and which ones you can just pick whichever class you would like. You'll also notice there are categories, so you have like your foundations category, your human cultures category, and beneath that are subcategories. So once you will have completed all of these categories, this will turn to green. So you're probably looking at your audit right now and seeing a mix of colors. Red means that you have not started the class or completed the class. If you have blue classes, that means that they're in progress and you're currently enrolled in them. And if it's green, it's done. So some of you probably have a mix of colors. Some just blue and red, some people blue, green, and red, depending on if you brought any transfer or dual credit in with you. You can also see how many classes you need for a category. So for social and behavioral sciences, there's 2, but for most categories, it's just 1. The knowledge of the natural world is kind of interesting because you need a life science, so like biology, a physical science, this is like chemistry for nursing, and only for gen eds, only one has to have a lab. So this is what this section is for, checking that one of them had a lab with it. So it looks a little funky. Yes, students have to take PLS and history. That's a common question we get. You have to have both, PLS 101, and then you can pick between your history classes. Once you get past the general education section, you get into your major specific. So this is where everybody at the university's degree audit starts to look very different because it depends on your major. For the major in nursing, there are different prerequisites. As we talked about in the previous video, you have some prerequisites that are general education related. They want you to have a C- or higher in these classes. We also need to get these done sooner rather than later, and I'll go into more detail about that a little bit later. But all of these are classes that you'll see both in this section, but they would also show up here in this general education section. Then there's your nursing prerequisites that do not double as general education courses. You need a C or higher in these classes, and a C- will not count. So make sure that you're getting a C or higher. Just a reminder, chemistry is a prerequisite for physiology and for micro, and you need to have a C or higher in that class. So even though it says C-, you will need a C to take your other classes. All these upper division nursing courses are the classes that you will take once you are in the nursing program. I should not get a single schedule with any of these nursing classes on it. We are not planning the nursing classes. Once you're in the program, you just get an email every semester that says you're taking this one, and this one, and everyone enrolls in the same classes. So it's very scripted. There's no need to plan it out. It's going to list your in-progress classes here at the bottom. If you have a minor, there will be a section for your minor, and if you're an honors college student, there will be a section for the honors college requirements that you have. I do not currently have a minor, and I am not an honors college student, so I don't have those sections. If you happen to drop or withdraw from classes, perhaps fail a class or repeat a class, you'll have a box for those classes as well. Okay, so we've looked at the degree audit. I now want to talk about how you know when you would be applying for the nursing program. So we're going to come back to this as we build your plan, but just so you know, students who plan to begin the nursing program in the fall semester, they're going to apply in January, and students who plan to begin the nursing program in the spring are applying in July. January is much more common because it's more of a traditional 4-year plan, usually for students to start in the fall. However, sometimes students bring in a lot of dual credit, so they apply a semester early. Sometimes students aren't in a hurry to get through their pre-nursing courses, so maybe they're applying a semester later. Or sometimes students don't get in the first time and they reapply, so maybe they applied in January the first time and they're reapplying in July. So if we look at this example, you'll see that this student is finishing all of their pre-nursing coursework here in spring 2024. This means that they're planning to start the nursing program in the fall, so they would be applying in January of 2024, so between this fall semester and spring semester. Fall start, January application. We then have this student who is finishing their pre-nursing coursework in the fall, so they will be starting in the spring. If you're starting in the spring, you're applying in the summer, so a July application. Spring start, July application. I have one more example because this tends to throw students off. The student, once again, planning to start in the fall, they will be applying in January. Don't let those summer classes throw you off. They will apply in January. You can finish your coursework in the summer if you are a January applicant. So that's a good thing to know. And you can always come back to this slide if you feel a little bit confused about when you should be planning to apply for the nursing program and then when you would be starting the nursing program. As you can see, students typically have some in-progress classes when they're applying, so that's fine. Okay, so to begin planning your schedule, we need to start by listing courses that you've taken prior to MSU, and I'm going to show you how to do this. The classes we're looking for are usually transfer credit, dual credit. Sometimes students have AP scores or IB scores that have gotten them course credit. So we're trying to make sure we know which classes you already got credit for so we don't plan those again. And then we're also going to list all of your classes you're currently taking this semester on your outline. We start with this so we know what's left over to plan in the future. As you're looking at your courses, please make sure they meet the grade requirement for that you need. I recommend looking at your application checklist that was attached because it lists your classes out that are prerequisites, and it has the ones that need a C- asterisk, and the ones that need a C do not have an asterisk. So you can track it that way. But for example, sometimes a student may bring in credit for English 110, but maybe they got a D, so they need to retake that class. The nursing program won't accept it as a prerequisite, even though it meets the general education requirement. So we need to track that and see if there's anything you need to retake. To do this, you are going to go to your degree audit. You're going to go to the 3 little ellipses or dots up here at the top of your degree audit, and you're going to select your class history. Your class history is going to pull up all the classes you've taken plus what you're currently in. So this was a student who was planning for the spring of 2022. So what you can do is you can go in and see everything you've already taken and then all the things you're currently in. So this student took their classes up here. They listed the MSU course code, that's important, and they put those MSU course codes in their previously taken classes. And then they went ahead and put the date in, so you can put fall 2022, and they've listed all of the classes that they are currently enrolled in the fall. So that is what you'll be doing on your plan. Just a note, sometimes students are thrown off. If it says TA, that just means you had an A for the course. The T just stands for transfer. So this was a class that was transferred in. You don't have to put your grades down on here. Just make sure you're checking them to make sure you have the grade you need. And this is why you need to have this document pulled up. You will put all this information here on your document. So fall 2022, current classes, everything that's listed that you've already got credit for goes up here. Go ahead and pause the video and complete this step, and then come back to the video and we'll move on to the next one. Okay, you should have completed step 1. So I recommend, if you like having a checklist, pull up your checklist and you can just go in and you can put an X next to all of the things that you've done. So you should have put in anything that was transfer credit, dual credit, and everything you're currently taking. If you did not have any dual or transfer credit, that's fine. You can go ahead and mark them off because you didn't have anything to add. And that's also completely normal. A lot of students don't bring in credit with them. So now we're moving on to step 2. Okay, step 2 is when we plan your pre-nursing sciences. The reason we start with your sciences is because they are often sequenced. So you have to have one before you can take the next one, and it's really important to get them down in the right order and then build the rest of your schedule around them. Because they are usually the determining factor, the biggest determining factor in when a student is eligible to apply. We're going to start by looking at biology. So biology is actually not a nursing prerequisite, but it is a prerequisite for other classes that you do have to have for nursing. And it will meet one of your general education requirements. Nursing students are going to take BMS 110 and 111 or Bio 121. This is because it keeps all of your anatomy and physiology options open. If you're a student who has transferred in credit for Bio 101 and 111, we will explain what that means for you and what your options are once you submit your application or submit your schedule to us. If we have suggestions for that, we'll let you know. And I'm going to get into details about Bio 101 here in a minute, but if you have questions about those details, just put that in your notes section on your schedule. Most nursing students are going to take BMS 110 and 111 because it's human biology, so it's a little more applicable to the nursing field. If that does not work with your schedule, you can take Bio 121, and that will work as a prerequisite for anatomy as well. So recommend 110 and 111, but 121 will work if you need it to. For chemistry, there are two options as well. There's chemistry 116, 117. Anytime you see, by the way, these slashes, that means there's two classes for you to sign up with. So you need to take the lecture, the first one, and the lab, both of them. It's important that you take both. If you see classes like Bio 121, typically that means there is a lab and a lecture here, but they are under the same course code. So when you register for 121, it will force you to register for a lab and a lecture. So it's kind of weird, sciences can be listed in two different ways. For chemistry, you'll be registering for both a lecture and a lab separately, and you can take 116, 117, or 160, 161. 1617 is fundamentals of chemistry, 6061 is Chem 1. 116, 117 is what most nursing students take. It works great for nursing programs. It works great if you have plans to go on and be a nurse practitioner. 160, 161 is better if you are planning to be a physician's assistant or a nurse anesthetist. You need that 160, 161 because you will need additional chemistry. So Chem 2, organic chemistry, and that Chem 160, 161 is the first in that line of classes. 116, 117 will not work for that sequence. So if you're considering anesthesiology or physician's assistant, you'll want to take 160, 161. Everyone else can take 116, 117. 116, 117 is also a requirement for nutrition. So if that's your backup option to nursing, if you don't get into the nursing program, it works well for that as well. Okay, so these are our entry-level science classes. If you're in biology right now, you're likely taking chemistry next semester, or vice versa. You're in chemistry and you're going to be taking biology. If you have not taken either, you'll probably want to consider taking both in the spring or saving one for the summer. But summers can be tricky because labs tend to be in person only, so sometimes students prefer to just take them in the spring. Just know that you'll be very, very busy with those two labs. Let's see. So after you take biology, you can then take human anatomy. You have to have biology done first. So when you put your schedule together, you should not be taking biology or taking anatomy without having biology on there first. For anatomy, you have two options, BMS 307 or Kin 250. BMS 307 transfers better because it's 4 credit hours, so most students take 307. It's also really rigorous. You will be in there with pre-med students, so it can be very challenging. But you get to work with a cadaver lab, so that's very exciting to get to work with human bodies. Kin 250, also a very rigorous course. Anatomy and physiology will be the two toughest classes you take as a pre-nursing student, but it may be a little less difficult than 307. You should still get all the content you need for nursing, but don't blow off either of these classes. Even if you choose Kin 250, it will be challenging. Kin 250 does not tend to transfer as well to other programs, so some students avoid it for that reason. This is where that Bio 101 and 111 comes into play. Kinesiology, Kin 250 will accept that as a prerequisite. BMS 307 will not, which is why we recommend BMS 110 and 111 and Bio 121 as the biology that you take, because 307 will take both of those. If, however, you do have credit for Bio 101 and 111 and you don't want to retake biology, you could just opt for the Kin 250 option. Just know it may not transfer as well if you ever go to any other nursing programs. Once you have anatomy completed, you can take physiology. No one should be taking physiology unless they've already completed anatomy and chemistry. Physiology is also a very challenging course. If you took BMS 307, you can take BMS 308 or Kin 252. If you take Kin 250, you have to take Kin 252. 308 will not accept it as a prerequisite. Microbiology requires chemistry first. Most students are going to take microbiology the same semester they're taking either anatomy or physiology, so you can kind of pick what you pair it with. Once again, you have a lecture and you have a lab, so make sure you sign up for both. Nutrition also requires chemistry. Whatever semester you choose to take microbiology, so if you take it with anatomy, you'll take nutrition with phys, usually with the other science. So when you're in anatomy, you're usually in another science, either micro or nutrition, and then the other one you take with phys. Nutrition does not have a lab, actually. It's the one science you take without a lab. So it can be nice to plan it for a semester when you'd like to have a little more time on your hands. Nutrition will also always be online, so be prepared for that. Let's look at a couple sample schedules. So this student did not take any science before coming to college or in the fall, so they are going to take both biology and chemistry in the spring. Chem 160 and 117 is actually 5 credit hours, so that sneaks up on a lot of people. Make sure you remember that. And then they're going to take anatomy in the fall because they will already have their biology. They're going to go ahead and take microbiology. They can do that because they have their chemistry. Then in the spring, they'll take physiology, and then they've decided to take nutrition with that as well. So remember, these 3 have to be in a certain order: biology, anatomy, phys. And then you can take chemistry and whichever of these 2 you want after that. Our next student came in with chemistry, took biology in their first semester, so they're ready to go ahead and jump into anatomy. They'll be taking anatomy in the spring, physiology in the fall, and then they're sticking with micro with anatomy and nutrition with phys, but they could flip-flop micro and nutrition if they wanted to. As you can see, because they already have those sciences, this is a student that could probably apply a semester early because we're not needing to use it this spring for any of their sciences right now. So we'll be tracking that. Okay, so now you are going to go back to your schedule and you are going to plan out your sciences. So your fall schedule is here. You need to figure out when you'll be taking the rest of your classes. You should have chemistry, biology, anatomy, physiology, micro, and nutrition all planned with step 2. You can use your checklist to check that and make sure you've got them all. So plan biology and then put an X, or if you're already in biology, you can go ahead and put an X next to that. Once you have chemistry, put an X, and so on and so forth through your checklist, only through step 2. Go ahead and pause the video and you can take care of that. Okay, so you should have your schedule planned, which means you should have everything marked off on step 2 now. All of these classes should be on your schedule somewhere. So we're going to go back to the presentation. The next step is to plan your pre-nursing courses that are both a general education course and a prerequisite. So these are those classes on your checklist, your application checklist, that have an asterisk next to them. And these are classes the nursing program asks that you complete before you submit your nursing application. So they cannot be in progress when you apply. This includes your English 110 or 105, depending on your placement score, Comm 115, psychology, sociology, math, or history. Placement scores are really important for English and for math. So if you do not know your placement scores and you do not have credit for English or math already, you need to look those up, and there are instructions for how to do that right here. English, you have to have 110 or 105. If you test into English 100, your placement score puts you there, you have to complete English 100 first. Similar thing with math. If you've placed into Math 101 or Math 103, you need to complete that before you can take 134 or higher. Never take Math 130. 130 will not help you as a nursing student. It will not work as a prerequisite for 134 or 136, and it will not meet the nursing requirement. So English 110, whenever you take English, don't take Comm. So don't take these in the same semester. Most students are in English 110 or Comm their first semester, and then they take the opposite one the next semester. Psychology and sociology are the same. You'll take Psych one semester and Soc the next. A lot of you are probably in one of these, and you can just take whichever one you haven't taken the next semester. For math, it can be 134 or higher. So if you transferred in a class that was like 278 or something, that's fine. It needs to be at least 134. 136 transfers better than 134 because it's a college algebra equivalent, so a lot of nursing students take that if they plan to apply to multiple nursing programs. But 134 should be easier. So for some students, they'd rather just take the 134 because they don't like math and they want to take the easier class. Just know that it won't transfer as well as 136. You also need to go ahead and plan history or your PLS class. So 121 or 122, or you can go ahead and plan PLS. 122 tends to be more popular because it is later American history, so it's like post Civil War, I believe, to the present. So students tend to be more familiar with it. They tend to prefer it. Okay, so this student actually has most of these done already between previously taking classes and what they're taking this fall. The only class that they have left on this list is Soc 150, so they've planned it for the spring. Remember, this has to be done before submitting your nursing application. They are on track to start the program in the fall down here. So they're going to be applying in between this fall and spring semester. So they need to have everything planned by the end of the fall. This student is on track to apply a semester early. So they also only have one class left. They're planning Social 150, but they have to plan it for the spring because they plan on applying in July. And for July applicants, the courses have to be taken before the summer starts. They won't let you take them in the summer. So I'm going to let you go back to your schedule and you can go ahead and plan these classes. So remember, if you have sciences planned for the spring, you're likely starting the nursing program in the fall. So these classes need to be done for you by the end of this fall term so you can apply in January. If you are finishing up your sciences in the fall, you're likely going to start the program in the spring. So you're applying in July, need to have your classes done by the end of this spring term. Once again, you can use your checklist to help make sure all of these classes show up on your schedule. Okay, so once English is on there, or if it's already on there, go ahead and mark that off, so on and so forth. Go ahead and pause the video and plan these classes. So you should have all of step 3 marked off now. Just like this. Okay, and then we're going to move into step 4. For step 4, we're planning the last of your classes. This includes statistics, which is not a general education course. I forgot to add this to the slides, but you have to have math done before you can do stats. So this statistics class should not show up on your schedule before Math 134 or 136. Most students take Psych 200, but any of these options will work. The other ones, really anything but the agricultural one, are pretty good. But Psych 200 can fill very quickly, so if you missed out on Psych 200, you can always enroll in one of these, or wait if you have time and take it another semester when you can't get into Psych 200. Writing 2, most nursing students take 210, 221, or 321. 321 is technical writing, so it's less essays and more brochures, handouts, that kind of thing. However, you have to have at least 45 credit hours completed to take 321. So a lot of students take 210 or 221 because they can take it after they've completed 30 credit hours. So it's easier, you can fit this in earlier than 321. Humanities. A lot of students take Philosophy 110 to meet the requirement at Cox College if that is their backup option to MSU. But you can take anything from this category. Same with arts, cultural competence, and public issues. Anything from these categories will work, and writing too, honestly, but these are pretty common. Cultural competence and public issues also have classes that will meet Cox requirements. Social work 219 meets their diversity requirement, and if you don't take 110 for humanities, you can take 115 to meet their philosophy requirement. So you don't need both, you just need one or the other. And then if you've already planned history, you'll add PLS to your schedule. If you've already planned PLS, you'll add history to your schedule. Just a warning, PLS tends to be the most difficult general education course students take, so don't let it catch you off guard. All of these are good summer classes, but a lot of students will choose to take PLS 101 in the summer or statistics, just because it's kind of nice to take them by themselves. So if you need a summer class, that's a good option. Some of you are probably familiar with this. This is the general education worksheet we used a lot at SOAR. So I've kind of marked these classes off here as well, 210, 221, 321. One thing to remember is for these categories, you have to have different course codes. So if you took an English class here, do not take an English class here. Some popular options here are Media 274, which is Intro to Film, Philosophy 110, Music 241 is also pretty popular, as are the religion classes. Classical mythology has a lot more reading in it than students often realize, so be careful of that if you don't like to read, as well as any English class. The arts, all of these creative writing classes you do actually write. Everything else is an appreciation course, so you're not creating art or dancing, you're just learning about those art forms. So they all tend to be a little more popular than the creative writing classes, but any of these will work. Here, same thing. If you take English here, you can't take English there. You have to have different course codes for these categories. For this section, Anthropology 100 is very popular. JER 180, Successful Aging, is very popular with nursing students. The religion classes are very popular here, as is Social Work 219 because it meets that Cox requirement. If you plan to travel abroad or study abroad, I mean, this IDS 297 can often be met by study abroad, so that can be a good option as well. For public issues, a lot of students like Crim 210 if they're into criminal justice. Chem 210 is great if you like working out. There is a lab component, so be prepared to work out in the lab. Philosophy 115 if you're trying to meet a Cox requirement. Please note that this is ethics and contemporary issues, so you talk about a lot of controversial issues. So if you don't like controversy or debate, maybe pick 110 over 115. Social 152 is also very popular from this category. All right, so back to this, we're going to look at these schedules and see how they have added their classes. So there's a few ways you can add these general education courses. You can see that they've added stats here. Psych 200 is what they plan to take. And then they've just written gen ed for the remaining gen eds that they have, and then they've written down which specific ones they need. You can find out which specific gen eds you need by checking your degree audit. So when you are looking at your degree audit in the general education section, you'll see each of these categories. Any category that hasn't been listed is because we've already planned for it. So some students are like, well, where's my social and behavioral sciences? We've planned them because you're taking psych and social, so I don't add them to this list. But you'll see if you still need humanities or arts, if it's blue or green, it's done. You don't need to worry about it. You're either in it or you've already taken it. So any of the ones that are on the list that are red, you need to make sure you add to your schedule. Cultural competence and public issues are here, PLS, history. This is that writing too here, written communication and integrative applied learning. Okay. So this student, because they are trying to apply in the summer and start in the spring, they have added their other classes here. So a couple in the summer to make sure that they get them done in time. And they've added a couple of general education courses to the fall. This student also chose to go ahead and decide which gen ed she's taking when. I've also had students put specific classes down. That's fine if you want to go ahead and write English 210 for your writing 2, or Theater 101 for arts. You can pick specific classes if you'd like. I recommend being very flexible with your gen eds because sometimes the one you want fills up, so it's better to pick a different one from that category or swap it out with another gen ed so you can take the one you want later. So I'm now going to give you time to go back to your schedule and add these final classes in wherever there's room. Remember, these can happen whenever, as long as they're before you start the nursing program. So just fill them in whatever term you still have room for classes. Most students are taking 13 to 17 credit hours a term. We recommend sticking to around 15, and in the fall and spring, or whenever students are taking anatomy and phys, BMS 307 or 308, it helps to try to keep those a lighter load because those classes are so intense. So allow students to stick to 13 credit hours if they can, but it's also not uncommon to see 16 those terms. And don't forget about your summers, utilize those too. So for this one, you should be able to mark off all of these classes by the time you're done planning it, okay? So go ahead and pause the video and take care of that. Okay, so now we've planned all of the classes that you absolutely have to have for nursing. So you should have a checklist that is X's all the way down. And we're just going to do kind of the cleanup stuff here at the end. If you have a minor or certificate, this is when you add those classes. Remember, I said we don't recommend taking more than 16 hours a semester. So if you don't have room for all of your classes, you may have to take them in the summer or consider finishing them after your BSN program. There aren't BSN, like nursing programs in the summer, so you can fit minor classes in then. Also, it's just very uncommon for nursing students to have a minor or certificate because it is so time consuming to be a nursing student. So don't feel bad if you don't have a minor. If you need to be a full-time student and your current schedule includes a part-time semester, you can add electives as needed, and I will show you what that looks like. Just note that electives are classes you do not need for your degree. You don't need them to meet a general education requirement or a major requirement, but you are taking them maybe because you need credit hours for a scholarship or something. Good use for elective hours is to take classes that meet prerequisites for other nursing programs you plan to apply to. I've listed some common electives here. Also, just picking a different gen ed on the gen ed worksheet that you don't really need but just sounds interesting. Talk to your peers about classes they've taken and enjoyed. Usually people don't want electives to be too challenging. They don't want them to hurt their GPA or anything. They're just looking for something that might be interesting or pretty easy. So for example, this is the student who was planning to apply a semester early, but now they've decided they want to go ahead and do a full 4 years. So they've just taken their summer classes and moved them to the spring and then added 2 additional elective classes that they don't really need, but that they've decided to take just so they'll be a full-time student. Okay, Special circumstances. Please note if you're an international student, you need to be in at least 9 hours of in-person classes. Mainly watch out for that when you're taking DTN 240 because it's online only. So if you sign up for 12 credit hours and then a gen ed is online as well, you won't be meeting the prerequisite or the credit hour requirement. You'll also need additional paperwork once you're in the BSN program, so just be aware of that. Honors college students, you must enroll in honor sections of 3 courses before beginning the BSN program. These can be courses that you're taking for your nursing program or for your nursing prerequisites. Popular options are BMS, 110 and 111. I think chemistry sometimes offers honor sections too. General education courses often have honor sections, and Psych 200, the stats class, often does too. If you're accelerated honors, this will not apply to you, and you can find out if you're general honors or accelerated by looking at your degree audit. It will tell you. And once you're in the BSN program, there will be additional requirements then as well. Okay. The last couple of things we need to do are figure out when you would be applying. So in your schedule, for example, if you have you finish your term in the fall and that's all of your classes, you'd be starting in the spring program. If you are finishing up your classes in the fall, you're going to be, or in the spring, you're going to be starting in a fall term. So go ahead and write begin nursing program whenever you'll be beginning your nursing program on your plan. And then at the top, you can circle or write down whichever month you would be applying and year. So this student is going to start in the spring, which means they're applying in July, and it's going to be 2023. So starting in the spring, applying in July, starting in the fall, applying in January. Go ahead and pause and add that to your schedule. We also need to add your registration status. You can do this by, or add your registration date. I'm sorry, you can do this by going to your registration status page. I'm going to show you how to do that. So you can do that by going to the registration tab on My Missouri State. You're going to select registration status, and it should pull up the term. You might see fall 22 instead of spring 2023. If that's the case, you need to select a new term, select spring 2023, hit submit, and then go to registration status again. And you want to make sure it's spring 2023 so you get the correct date. You should have your advisor listed here, and you should have your earliest registration date. You can also find out if you have any holds. What you want are green check marks all the way down. You should have an advisor hold, but you'll get an advising release once we've approved your schedule. But you want to make sure there's no holds down here and resolve those holds as soon as possible. What you're going to do on your schedule is write your registration date, write the name of your advisor, and if you have any holds, go ahead and make note of that as well.